It's so in the Sephardic, right? The rabbis already mentioned in the Talmud that that one is not supposed to take verses from Shir HaShirim and turn them into song, and then other people extended it to any pasuk from the Tanakh, and for some reason it was more widespread in the Sephardic community, and that's why they kept writing poetry to provide always for new material, but also part of the because of the Islamic influence that in Spain, the Arab scholars wrote a lot of poetry was considered a very high form of art, and they argued that only in Arabic you could write poetry. So the Sephardic poets, got into that. So we are on page 62 on that on this book, Abia Renanot, and we saw once we were going through the Piyyutim, through the poems, that you have some that were written 1,000 years ago and some that are really relatively young. So this one, number 20, is relatively late, maybe 200 years ago, written by Rabbi Atia, and I'm going to sing the first and last verse of it, and it goes like this. Olu shiru shira yeled avim lemelech hamoneh מספר הכוכבים בלילי שבתות ובימים טובים בעדת הרעים חברים מקשיבים. And some they have a tendency when they sing the whole song, because it's repetitive, that towards the end they pick up the pace, and the last one will be a little faster, like Haza Kayemana Nehamot Yeshaya Le'am Asherem Peshim Chahosim Va'aselaim Niflaot Venisim Hai Gam Ataya Vegam Timaya Hai Gam Ataya Vegam Timaya. And then from here we segue to the next piyut, written by Rabbi Mordechai Abadi, and it's all about the Shabbat.
Now,
so you got Yom Zeh. Yeah, Yom Zeh Shir Ulael.
Now, this rabbi, was he from Morocco?
No, Haleb. The most of the Piyyutim here were written by rabbis from Aleppo, from Haleb, and the Moroccan tradition is even more elaborate. They have hundreds. Here we talk about 60 altogether, many of them written by the poets of the Golden Age in Spain. In the Moroccan tradition, they have basically maybe 20 or 30 for each Shabbat, and it's a completely different musical system. So this is Aleppo, but representing the Mediterranean, Middle Eastern music.
Well, then the Moroccan is more closely related to Spain, and
right.
Andalus more.
Right. So Morocco is called in Arabic. Morocco is called Maghrib, which means the West. North Africa is the West, and Syria, Lebanon, Iraq are called Sharq, which means the East. So this is the East of the Arab world.
So when you say it's for Shabbat, is this incorporated into the Siddur? Or is this,
no.
The song after, like you're doing a Shabbat lunch?
Yeah, but more, no. Sometimes today people will sing it after Shabbat lunch, but back then they would get up early Shabbat morning at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and sit in the synagogue.
It was still cool. Like you said, because I was telling him, you said your grandfather said they never used to daven late on Yom Kippur because it got too hot.
Right. So they would do it during the winter time, where you have a long night. Mm-hmm. So you get up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and you go to the synagogue and you sing all these songs for 2 or 3 hours. But a lot of it is, even though it's repetitive, but when you sing it with a full choir or 100 people in the synagogue, it has
back and forth, like responses.
Mm-hmm. So this one goes like that. It's in a scale which is a European scale, Ajam, which is the major Western scale, and it goes like that. Basically, it's the same tune for every phrase. Yom ze shiru la'el shiru mizmor et kivo Shabbat melachto gamor al ken utziva zachor v'shamor יום השביעי שבת לאדוני, שבת המנוחה מכל מלאכה, ששון ושמחה, כי הוא חלקך, בו יברך וישמרך, תישא ברכה מאת אדוני. And then it repeats like Sifter Renanot. It's A B A B. And I'll repeat that the tune, the melody is repetitive. So basically, you would sing stanzas number 3, 4, and 5 the same way. Sifter Renanot kol lashon dode. And the next one, Benish Haim Ovadia. And the next one, Yemin Adonai koach nedari. So it's all boring. So what people found out, because it's an easy tune, relatively, right, and the scale, so they sort of like, I don't know how this was done. This is like the popular voice. People changed it and like, theme with variations. Mm-hmm. So they the stanza number 3, 4, and 5, they gave it a different arrangements. So this is how it would sound. I started from the top. יום זה שירו להן שירו מזמור, עת קיבו שבת מלאכתו גמור, על כן הוא ציווה זכור ושמור. יום השביעי שבת לאדוני, שבת המנוחה מכל מלאכה, ששון ושמחה, כי הוא חלקך, בו יברך וישמרך, תישא ברכה מאת אדוני. ספטר רננות כל לשון תודה, תבדיל בשפה להסגיר חד, אלקין חילזות נחלת עבדי, אל וצדקתם נאום אדוני. בן איש חיל חי ויודך, כי טוב להודות לזמר שמך, גם להגיד בבוקר חסדך, מגל ומעשיך אדוני. ימין אדוני כוח נדרי, עוזי מעוזי מגני סדרי, ארום ממנו אודה משירי, כי מי בשחק יערוך לאדוני. חזקו ואמצו בראש השמורות, קומו עריצו לאל בזמירות, כי הוא חייכם לבוא בגבולות, תשבו בחצרות בית אדוני. So this is how the song is touched up a little bit. In between of the Shabbat,
of this particular, what's in English?
In English, so the meaning, right, of the words would be praise Hashem on that day, because this is the day that He ceased from work. Shabbat is a day of rest. It's joy and happiness. Hashem will bless you. It's repeating the theme, right? It's repetitive in the words also, but using verses from Tanakh, from Tehillim, and weaving them together nicely. Yeah.
You said before about how Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and all, but Iran has a different.
No, Iran has a different tradition.
Persians,
yes.
Different empires.
Again,
different
Persian has a different. The Persian tradition, it's the same musical scales, but a different way of singing. Different emphasis, and the liturgy, they didn't create that much original liturgy, but they kept visiting. People were traveling. Iran was, so they would have similar things. But I personally know one Persian tune for Shabbat, and it's basically based on a popular Persian song, which literally means the flower of the rock, Guli Sangam, and we'll do it when we get to the Oikra. I think we did it. The Oikra leven'im abad ve'im tzorchem kemo vavad ne'im shimachem v'no yushbat שבונו and then the second stanza goes up. Delo navi ve'ulami ve'ol yesha se'imi neda soreg ve'dochami she'ai shavad b'ne'ami. And then you repeat the same thing.
We have a Dror Yikra in Ashkenazi too.
Right.
That's not that what they had. The tune is probably totally different.
Right. No, so the Dror Yikra is, one of the most ancient Piyyutim ever written in the what is called modern poetry, meaning past the ancient or classical period of Eretz Israel up to the 9th century, and it was written by Dunash ben Labrat, who lived between Spain, Iraq, and Morocco. A very interesting, prolific author, whose wife also wrote poetry. We have one poem of her which survived. This is a very popular tune with the Yemenites, Ashkenaz, Sephardim, everybody sings it. But fitting your question, Benson, about the content of the Piyyut, the next one, which is a very popular one, Ki Yishmer Shabbat, that I think everybody sings, like many, many different tunes for in the different traditions. This is a different approach. It's not just praising Shabbat. Shabbat is wonderful and all that, but it actually goes through the laws of Shabbat in a very simple way, in a poetic way. Actually, it says, if I guard Shabbat, God will guard me. And it's an eternal sign between me and Him. It was written by Rabbi Avraham ben Ezra of the 12th century in Sephardic. And he goes on to say, Asur metzor hefetz la'asot derachim. You cannot think of your business on Shabbat and find ways to achieve your material needs, and gami ledaber bo divrei tzarachim, even if you're not physically engaged with the work, and he's talking about like types of things that you might be allowed to do on Shabbat, but if it's not related to Shabbat, don't do it. He says even to speak on divrei tzarachim or your material needs, about merchandise, or divrei melachim, or about the divrei melachim, the stories of the kings. And that's an interesting thing because
we shouldn't talk politics.
Shouldn't talk politics, exactly. It says, but rather learn the Torah and gain wisdom from it. It's interesting because later on in the 14th, 15th century, Rabbeinu Yaakov ben Rabbeinu Asher, who wrote the Turim, says that people who derive joy from talking about, he says, Divrei Melachim Milchamoteim, the stories of the kings and the wars, because that was the news of the day, right? Says they're allowed to do it on Shabbat because that's your Onik Shabbos, that's your joy of Shabbat. But with politics of today, it's a little different. It could be divisive, so you have to. Would be more applicable to current events, science, technology, world news. Yes, but you have to make sure that you learn from them what you can. You keep abreast of what's happening, but without that, affecting your Onik Shabbat. So the second phrase, he says, I always find peace and rest for myself. Already the first generation, God already gave this, made this miracle to the first generation, meaning the people who left Egypt, by providing them with bread, a double portion of manna on Friday. Says, so also I pray to Hashem that every Friday will give me double portion.
So that the double portion is Lechem Mishnah?
Yes. Yechpir Mezoni, that's where we get the idea of Lechem Mishnah, of having 2 loaves of bread. And by the way, just you see interesting thing in the way he writes the poetry, because he puts he moves the comma, meaning if I would read the second and third part of this stanza, should have been Hine ledor rishon natan kedoshi mofet betet lechem mishneh beshishi, because mofet means miracle. So in the first generation, God performed a miracle, by providing bread, double portion on Friday. But the way it's read with the poetic meter is a Hine ledor rishon natan kedoshi mofet betet lehem mishneh bashishi. So it creates this kind of tension or interest in the song because it doesn't divide, it doesn't break according to the laws of grammar. Then Rasham bedat hayom chok seganav. One of the laws of the day that the Sganim are the Kohanim were given is to present the daily bread. The new bread was put in the Mikdash on Friday. Therefore, according to the scholars, because the bread symbolizes our physical benefit, physical joy, we must eat on Shabbat. So if you want to fast on Shabbat, you're not allowed, except for Kippur. And that became a big issue in medieval times because people were trying to imitate Christians and Muslims, and asceticism, or depriving yourself from joy, was a common thing. And so people were fasting on Shabbat. So he mentioned that don't do that on Shabbat.
Asur is forbidden, right?
Yes. And then he goes, Hayom mechubad yom ta'anugim, lechem ve'yain tov basar ve'dagim. This is a day where you have to enjoy, have bread, good wine, meat, fish. Hamit abelim bo hem ahor nesogim. Those who mourn on Shabbat will be pushed back or will lose. And it is a possibility that he refers specifically to some Karaites sect who used to mourn year long, including on Shabbat. And why are they going to be punished? Because it's a happy day, and Hashem wants us to rejoice. In parenthesis, right? Nusach, right? A different version reads, instead, those who mourn, it's in parenthesis, those who mourn on that day will suffer. It says those who rejoice on that day will be rewarded with more joy. But obviously, that's a later correction because he didn't want to sing like this negative thought that they will be punished. But in the very next one, it says Mehel melacha bosofo leachrit. One who does work on Shabbat will be cut off, and therefore achabez bo libi bevorit. I would rather dedicate this for meditation and cleaning my heart. Borit is a kind of soap they used to for laundry. Et palela elel arvit v'shachrit musaf v'gam mincha u'yaneni. I would pray to God, offering the four tefillot in order, and He will respond to me. So these are the lyrics. Very interesting. This now melodies abound for this. So they have one melody which comes from the Ladino tradition, and it goes like that. Ki yeshmer ha-Shabbat el yishmereni, Ki yeshmer ha-Shabbat el yishmereni, Oti le'olamei ad beno uveni, Oti le'olamei ad beno uveni, Asul metzohevet לעשות דרכים, גם מלדבר בו דברי צרכים, דברי סחורה דברי מלכים, אגה בתורת האל ותחכמני. כי אש, so some I repeat always the refrain, כי אש אמר השבת אל ישמרני, אותי לעולמי עד בנו ובני, אותי לעולמי עד בנו ובני. Okay, so that's the Ladino
that was brought into
Ashkenazi world. Yeah, it's easy. It's a European scale. Also Ajam, the major scale. Then there's one which is a Moroccan tune. Ki eshmera Shabbat el yishmereni, oti le'olamei ad beno uveni, asu אסור מצו חפץ לעשות דרכים, גם מלדבר בו דברי צרכים, דברי סחוראות, דברי מלכים, אגה בתורת אל ותחכמני, כי אשמרה שבת אל ישמרני, אותי לעולמי עד בינו וביני. And thus it repeats throughout. There's an Iraqi tune for that. כי אשמרה שבת אל ישמרני, אותי לעולמי עד בינו וביני. אסור מצו חפץ לעשות דרכים, גם מלדבר בו דברי צרכים, דברי סחוראות, דברי מלכים, אגה בתורת אל ותחכמני. Oh no, so the previous one was the Sephardic tune, very popular. The Iraqi is this. כי אשמרה שבת אל ישמרני, אותי לעולמי עד בינו וביני. אסור מצו חפץ לעשות דרכים, גם מלדבר בו דברי צרכים, דברי סחוראות, דברי מלכים, אגה בתורת אל ותחכמני, כי אשמרה שבת אל ישמרני, אותי לעולמי עד בינו וביני. Now, so this is another tune. This is in a very rare scale called Lami that is only used in Iraq. I mean, mainly in Iraq and Kurdistan.
I didn't remember all these tunes.
We grew up with them. So then there's another tune for that, and much more complicated that they do in the Bakashot, but that's where the cantors sort of could show off, because each one gets a stanza and he could elaborate. So this goes like that. Ki shemera Shabbat Eli shemereni, oti le'olmei ad beno veni. And here's where the Hazan goes and he goes, Asur metzom chefetz. And the whole Kahal answers, La'asod derachim. Again he goes, Asur metzom chefetz. La'asod derachim. Gami לדבר בו דברי צרכים. And then again the whole thing, even for each line, דברי סחוראות, דברי מלכים, דברי סחוראות, דברי מלכים, אגה בתורת אל, בתורת אל, בתורת אל, ותחכמני. And then we'll go like it's 5 or 6 stanzas, in each one of them like that, but
It almost
people
sounds like
enjoy that.
From the,
Yeah, definitely there is
from the minaret.
between the muezzins and the Jewish Hazanut. There was a lot of influence everywhere you go. You have that kind of thing. Wherever you live together for hundreds of years, actually there is a testimony that one of the rabbis in Turkey used to go to church on the holidays. His name was Rabbi Kohen. He used to go to church to pick up new tunes, to incorporate into tefillah. And when the Gregorian chant came out, it was very was a fad a couple of years ago. You listen to it. I said a lot of this chant is this style reminds me of the way the Greek Jews or the Jews of Salonika would sing their high holidays tefillot. And you see the same thing, for example, the famous Ma Usu Yeshwati, Ma Usu Yeshwati, right? Is basically a tune of a German folk song. It means the wild Alpros or something like that. Well, it gets in. Definitely there is there's counter influence. So in terms of Piyyutim, I think we'll stop here. We did enough tunes for today that we have to review and learn.